it's Phil. Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Christian Taylor.
Hey, Phil.
Hi, Christian. And Sky Jitani.
Hello.
Hi. Have you trimmed? Have you done
No,
it?
I have to. I have to
It
go.
looks a little fuzzy.
It's fuzzy because it's been a long time since I've had any facial hair, and I have to dig around my house and figure out where my trimmer
You've
is.
forgotten what to do next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's not going to last long.
I do kind of like it, though.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I think
You kind of look like him.
I flew this week, and I think too many people were looking at me.
I think
Do you get
should,
mistaken as a terrorist?
Well, no one comes right out and says it, but when I get up to go to the bathroom,
Yeah.
people are watching
and then
me.
Get your bag from the overhead.
Yeah, exactly. You know what's awkward is as soon as you pass 10,000 feet and you can now
Yeah.
get up or use your laptop or whatever, I'll get up and go into the overhead or down and pull out my bag, and I can feel people just getting like tense.
Come on.
No, and the other one is when I get up and if I go to
You
the
are just
forward
saying
lavatory by the flight deck, that's when people are.
Are you?
Sometimes.
I feel bad. I'm
You've got
sorry.
victim syndrome.
I'm sorry.
You imagine offenses now.
You know what? We probably should just believe him. Otherwise, we're probably racist.
Do you know what I have to say about that?
No.
Hey, it's a podcast, but do you know? Hey, it's a podcast, and we got video. Hey, it's a podcast, so lend an ear. The Phil Vischer podcast starts right here. We'll talk to Sky.
Hi, Phil.
Hi, don't make any sudden movements. Or Christian, too. And we got no guest because we don't need one here for you. Hey, it's a podcast, so lend an ear. The Phil Vischer podcast starts right here. The Phil Vischer podcast starts right here. Have you watched Serial or listened to Serial, the podcast that's sweeping
Never even heard
sweeping
about
the
it.
world?
Serial?
Tell me about
Like
it.
Serial.
How's it spelled?
Like killer?
Serial, as in serialized. It's a spin-off of This American Life. Actually, Justin Brierley emailed me from London to say my whole office is addicted to Serial. Are you listening to it? It's a spin-off of This American Life. It's an entire year following or trying to unravel a case, a murder case.
A true story.
Yeah, so it's a true story looked into for an entire year. And it's now the #1 podcast on iTunes.
Wow.
Like 5
Why is
million
it so
downloads.
interesting?
So what do we take from that?
Partly because it was promoted by This American Life, and that they're the #1 podcast,
Right.
so it's got huge promotion. But the woman behind it was on Colbert last night. That's how big it is.
No.
Wow.
She was not on Colbert last
The
night.
night before last.
Yeah. Because last night, did you see the Colbert last night?
I missed it. What was
Before
it?
last.
It was really cool.
No, I didn't.
Is
see
that his last one?
No.
Or, no.
They had
He's in the countdown. Though.
they had Schmog from The Hobbit, like the actual
Really?
dragon.
The dragon?
CGI'd in and it did an interview with Colbert. It was really quite something.
Oh, I gotta watch that one.
That's crazy. Okay, we got movie news. We're doing movie news.
Movies.
Movie news today.
Is that why you wore your "Where the Wild Things Are" sweatshirt?
Where the wild things are?
T-shirt?
Yeah, thank you.
I wore my Interstellar shirt.
Yeah, you're going to a black hole.
I
You've
wore
turned
my
into a
workout
black hole,
wear.
and you're going to work out after
That's
that.
Yeah, I am.
racist, by the way.
What? Being a
Black
black hole?
holes are racist. Well, what do you call the absence of light? So they're dark holes. That's what we should call them.
Dark holes?
Yeah, dark
Maybe
holes.
we should call them interstellar holes.
No.
No.
No, I don't think so. But I'm not going to talk about that movie first.
Oh, okay.
What are we talking
First,
about?
we have to talk about Kirk Cameron just set a record.
What was that?
Do you know what Kirk Cameron just did?
I don't
He has a
wanna know.
movie out. Do you know what his movie is?
No.
Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas.
That sounds not very.
He's saving Christmas?
Interesting.
Yeah, Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas. Well, I think it's a possessive credit. Kirk Cameron's movie
It's
called...
not Kirk Cameron is saving Christmas.
Well, although according to the poster, he is, because he's smashing through bad ideas about Christmas with a giant candy cane in his hand, holding a snow globe of the Nativity. While money and Christmas trees fly away behind him. That's the poster.
All the while,
It's
he's
awesome.
doing this as a movie, which is a commercial enterprise.
Yeah. So,
Okay, just
so
saying.
the record he broke. You want to know what record he broke?
People not watching.
It's now the lowest rated movie in the history of IMDb.
That's what That's what
Wow.
I figured.
It set the record.
That's
it's
terrible.
Officially rated as the worst movie ever, according to IMDb.
How long has it been out?
3 weeks, 4 weeks. And it was going to be a limited release. It was just going to be 2 weeks. So here's the funny part. I was asked to produce a short film to go on the front of that movie because it was coming in too short. And we were actually doing that. Bill and I were working on it. We wrote it. I wrote a script. We had storyboards. We were starting to make it. It would have been Buck Denver and his friends in space for Christmas. And Kirk Cameron decided he didn't want anyone to put a short on his movie. And so it got canned after we were actually already working on it. It got canned.
Are you happy about that now?
I would have had the distinction of having my short film go out.
You should send him a thank you letter.
On the front end of the worst movie in history. Now, what's funny is, and this is where the story gets interesting, because it came out, it got a zero rating on Rotten Tomatoes, a 0 rating, so not a single positive review. Kirk Cameron Facebooked to his fans, and he has quite a few fans, to say, hey, we need to help people know about this movie, so everybody go to Rotten Tomatoes and give it 5 stars for audience review. That response drove the audience rating up to 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, but the news of him doing that got out, and people didn't like him gaming the system, so more people came in and immediately drove it down to 30%.
So, okay, but that makes me wonder how much of this whole thing is really a review of the film itself, or is it just people...
A popularity contest.
A popularity contest for and against Kirk Cameron.
Yes. There's that, too.
Yeah.
No one, most of the people who've done it, I don't think have even seen the film.
Right, that's what I mean. How could you accurately represent
So can you tell me what the film is about?
Do you know who has seen the film? Oh, so there was Kirk Cameron was quoted saying he now blames the reviews and them falling so low on atheists.
There's not that many.
They're out to get him. Oh. It's an interesting story.
What's the story?
Of all the stuff going, the film itself.
Thank you.
I've actually seen the film.
Okay.
Because I watched it.
So you're the one.
I made a short. I don't think it qualifies as a movie, is the thing of it. He did kind of like a documentary thing that they released in theaters as a special event a couple of years ago for a week or 2 weeks, where he was talking about evangelism or apologetics or something, and it actually made money, and that's where this idea came from. So this gives the impression, it's more like a mini documentary. It just teaches a few things about Christmas. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, why do we call it Christmas? My documentary about Christmas.
With puppets.
Except about half as much teaching and longer and without any puppets or animation.
So what's the content?
So what is it? Is it just him monologuing?
It's kind of... It takes place... It's really kind of astounding. It takes place in a house that's having a Christmas party. It actually, the film almost seems like it was a dare or a bet of someone saying, I bet you can't make a feature film in your house in a weekend.
It's like a 48-hour film fest kind of thing.
And somebody said, I can. Not only can I, but I could get a theatrical release for it. I can make a feature film in my house in a weekend and get a theatrical release for it, just with my friends and family. So it looks like it's in Kirk Cameron's house or someone's house. Mm-hmm. There's a Christmas party. He comes to the Christmas party. His brother-in-law is not participating in the Christmas party because he's depressed about the commercialization of Christmas and all the paganness of Christmas.
Okay.
So Kirk Cameron, he wanders away and gets into, he's sitting in the front seat of his car, the brother-in-law, because he's depressed and he doesn't want to participate because Christmas is pagan. So Kirk Cameron goes out and sits in the passenger seat of the SUV, and that's where 2/3 of the movie takes place.
So this is a low budget feature. We're trying to figure out how many locations we can keep this
so they're
to.
Inside the house,
and they're in a car.
In the SUV.
And the conversation in the car doesn't like break away to...
They do some flashbacks.
Yeah.
They do some like B-roll cutaway of, here's a dramatization of Christmas trees being cut down, or here's a dramatization of St. Nicholas as if he were a kind of a Lord of the Rings style warrior. Bizarre. They wanted to make him look manly, so they picked up on the notion of him physically assaulting Arius during the Arian trial.
Nice.
Which supposedly he did. So that's why you should be excited about Santa Claus, kids, because he beat the crap out of a guy once over for bad theology.
Well, so what?
And then at the end, of course, the guy comes around and says, I can celebrate Christmas now. And they go back into the house and they dance to a song.
That's the movie.
That's the movie. It's astonishing.
Okay, well, is the history right? Is the theology right?
Almost. No, his Christmas tree explanation is just fabricated. He connects it to the lampstand in the temple. Christmas trees.
Really?
Yeah, because they were in the form of an almond tree. The details are like from an almond tree on the lampstand in the temple.
But that's not a...
And they had lights on them, like a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
And that's not.
That's not.
That has nothing to do with
Right.
where Christmas trees come
So, shouldn't he just get a podcast like the rest of us rather than try to do feature-like movies that...
from. But they've actually made money. See,
Well, that was what I was going to ask
Unlike
you.
our podcast.
Who's paying for this? Number one, who's paying for?
Sony.
Sony
they're in
paid
the
for it?
doghouse anyway.
Sony. Yeah.
Wow.
Have you heard what happened to them?
No, what happened?
Yeah, they were hacked.
They were hacked, and all the emails from within the company and documents have been disclosed. So now,
And do you know why they were hacked?
No.
Because of the movie The Interview.
Okay.
Which the premise is James Franco
Right.
and Seth Rogen
Right.
are going to assassinate Kim Jong-un,
Right.
the head of North Korea. So the theory is that North Korea hacked into Sony to punish them for releasing that movie.
and they've disclosed through these emails how much different actors are paid. They've got some of the executives
Ooh,
saying
I need to go read
saying
this.
racial stuff about President Obama. They've got.
When did all this happen, and where was I?
They've got executives saying things about other actors and producers like Angelina Jolie, and it's not flattering stuff. And so it's all being leaked out now. And
to humiliate Sony,
right.
to punish them for
When did this happen?
in the last couple
this
weeks,
week.
yeah.
This week.
My
It was this
goodness
week.
gracious.
Okay, more movie news. Next
Okay.
movie news.
Yeah.
Okay, last week, and this is big. This is huge.
What?
Can't wait to hear it.
Last week, Christian bookstores, top 25 DVDs, kids' DVDs sold in Christian bookstores.
What's in the Bible?
11 of them were VeggieTales.
Okay, which you created.
14 were What's in the Bible.
Wow.
You surpassed your own stuff? Nice job.
I actually beat myself.
You beat yourself.
This week, for the first time ever, more of the top 25 videos were What's in the Bible than VeggieTales.
Congratulations.
Now, not in volume, because the top VeggieTales video, although maybe actually in volume for the top 25, not in volume for
So
the
if it's
full
not
top
in volume, how do they measure it?
well, individual rankings. Like
With weight.
the top 2 or 3 were VeggieTales, and they sold more. But then most of the rest of the middle was What's
So the
What's in
number of
Bible.
top 25 in sales.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
got it.
Yeah. What's in the Bible has 14 of the top 25 right now, and VeggieTales has 11.
But
of the
VeggieTales
top
technically
25.
is still outselling.
I'm just looking for any reason to say,
All right.
hey.
Well,
Hooray!
so which one of your 14?
Christmas.
Oh, the Christmas one.
Christmas.
Okay.
Why do we call it Christmas?
Well, that makes sense.
That's-
Which is obviously light years better than Kirk Cameron's.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying
I'm
that.
saying
See,
it.
I'm not reviewing
I haven't seen it.
Kirk Cameron's film. I'm not.
You're just giving information.
I'm not reviewing VeggieTales. I'm not reviewing VeggieTales in the House. You know, these are all good people.
You're sounding like a politician.
doing good work.
You
That's
both
not-
sound like a politician most of the time.
Oh,
That's
come
not-
on.
You guys do not really, go on the line with,
Why? Because we don't want to unnecessarily offend.
Yes.
That's why we have guests.
Except for Phil. Sometimes he occasionally offends.
occasionally, like
That's
Not
just
on purpose.
with his odor.
like my great attack on Beyonce. Yeah, okay,
I'm thinking
so-
about your, New Testament. Well, not New Testament, but some of your.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
So, if you're looking for a great Christmas gift for your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids, your great-great-grandkids, your nieces, your nephews, your uncles that don't know the Bible very well,
Teenagers.
go to what'sinthebible.com.
You should do a teenage version.
My teenagers like it, actually.
What would a teenage version be?
I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, just some LOLs, more LOLs.
I will tell you, honestly, I sit down with my teenagers,
Your
even my
teenagers like it?
24-year-old, and they like it. There's
My-
enough humor there and information that they didn't know that
my-
You
keeps
could do
them
a
engaged.
college version where the puppets are all in college now, and it's like a frat house.
So it'd be like the Rugrats grown up. Do you
Yeah,
remember when
yeah,
they
yeah,
did
yeah.
that?
Right.
That
did not
pathetic.
work.
That was. So I am reviewing that, and that was terrible. Original Rugrats, okay. The Rugrats all grown up.
Well, the
terrible.
Muppets did it both ways. They had Muppet babies, and then
Well, they
had
did the other
regular-
way though.
Yeah,
They started grown up, and then they turned into babies.
and that's okay.
Did you like the Muppet Babies?
I don't remember.
I thought Muppet Babies was better.
I didn't understand
Better
the
than
premise
what?
of it.
Better
Why?
than regular Muppets, or
No,
better
not
than
better than-
regular babies?
I don't.
Than what?
Did they actually live in a house?
Yeah, they did, and they had a nanny.
I didn't
why
think
were
so.
all
They
these
were all
mu-
orphaned. Maybe it was daycare. I think they were in daycare.
I don't think so. I think
I think they
lived
were in
there.
daycare.
Was it daycare?
It was
Yeah.
a questionable
Why are we
family
talking about
structure.
this?
Yeah. Where are these responsible Muppet
What
parents?
movie were we talking about?
Muppets don't have parents. They're puppets. But they still need daycare when
But
they're
in that
babies.
show, they were
were
animated.
We have
I
gone
know.
off
They
the
had
rails.
legs and everything.
What do we do, Bill? Help me out here.
What can the Muppet Babies teach us about Christian parenting?
And why wasn't-
That's the topic of our show today.
And why wasn't Kermit a tadpole?
Because it wasn't young enough to be a tadpole.
He
yet.
was still in diapers.
Was he?
Yeah.
Wow.
He should have been attached.
He
should
should
have been a
That
tadpole.
was completely
It
scientifically
would have
inaccurate.
been a little bit
That would have changed.
lewd.
That would have changed the show if he just flopped through the frame every now and then. There goes Kermit. Okay, you probably don't want to hear us talk about Muppet Babies anymore. You want something important, because Sky Jitani finally, after we've been asking him for 12 weeks, went and saw Interstellar.
I did.
Yeah, and you saw it with Jonah.
I did. Josh.
Josh,
who had a spiritual
who had
experience.
An interstellar experience.
Yes, he did.
I saw it by myself in an empty theater. I think there was one other guy
Why didn't Amanda come with you?
because I was in California.
Oh, you went to that already happened?
After you
Yeah.
got back from India?
Yeah.
You went to California?
I had to go to California for a couple days, and I had
didn't know that
a
already
few
happened.
hours
I thought
free.
That was next week. That was this week.
That's this week.
Oh, okay.
And so I caught.
Why did you met with my brother-in-law, right?
Yes, I did.
Why didn't you take him to see Interstellar?
Because I actually wanted to talk to him, and
Oh.
so I didn't want to sit in a movie with him.
Okay, so Sky,
Yes.
what did you think about Interstellar? Did it rock your world?
Purely as a movie,
Yeah.
I didn't really enjoy it.
Oh, why?
Well, it was just boring at times. Frankly, it was boring. I didn't find it that good.
Hey.
I love Christopher Nolan's movies normally.
Deep space travel. I got news for you.
I know.
Is boring.
I just didn't. I didn't get into it that.
Things happen like every 5 years in deep space.
Right. And then
Didn't you love the part where they went down to that one planet and they finally got back to the ship and the guy says, "You've been gone for 21 years." And he's just standing there.
With the beard.
Yeah, like he's just been standing there the whole time.
I think if he had been alone for 21 years, he would have been a whole lot more crazy.
Yeah, there would have been like poop spread on the walls,
And where-
like monkeys gone mad.
And he clearly found his beard trimmer. Because he didn't
That
have a
was not a-
long,
that was not a
scraggly beard.
21
And he
year
barely had any gray, and he still had hair. I was jealous on multiple levels. Okay, so as a movie, I mean, it's not the kind that's like, oh man, I want to see that again.
Yeah.
And then,
Did you feel that way about Inception? That you
yeah,
wanted to
like
see
some
that
of those
again? Okay.
movies I thought were much stronger.
Okay.
I felt like it was an updated rehash, sort of like the Jodie Foster movie Contact,
Yeah.
the Carl Sagan novel turned
Yeah.
into a movie where at the end she encounters.
Which McConaughey is also in.
Yeah, that's right. He is. So
plays a
that
Christian
felt like,
in it.
and then the
I never
whole.
saw that.
Weird.
It's interesting.
I mean, there's philosophical issues we'll talk about that I'd love to get
Okay.
into. I think are interesting to discuss, but that wasn't.
You didn't walk away overwhelmingly impressed with those things. You just
Technically, it was impressive.
Yeah,
right?
technically it was
Technically
impressive.
it was.
Scientifically,
They put
I
on
actually
screen.
went and watched some videos with Neil deGrasse Tyson explaining the physics of the movie and all that.
Okay.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
But just the narrative itself, I didn't find that compelling.
Okay.
As a story, I was not that.
Narratively, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I didn't either.
Now, Bill hasn't seen it yet, have you? Have you seen it? Did you see it last night?
La 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 la. Bill's over here going
Bill's
like this.
trying not to listen.
We,
'cause
we won't
We're
give,
gonna give it away.
we're
Yeah.
spoilering.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Bill.
We're spoilering. There be spoilers ahead.
Well, first of all, let me just say,
Yeah.
I had no idea it was as long as it was.
Yeah, it was long.
It
That
was
was
a
a
very
long
long
movie.
movie, like
Yeah.
2 and almost 3 hours.
It does feel like you're entering a black hole.
It did feel that way. It felt that way.
I was fairly certain that I wasn't going to like it very much just from the previews, and it's because of the father-daughter thing. Because I got to tell you, I thought that was contrived and intentionally just like emotionally manipulative.
I actually thought it was pretty important.
Well, it was important to what he was trying to say.
Well,
but it was
yeah.
it was stupid. You wouldn't.
Okay, hang on. Why do you feel like it's
There
stupid?
was no need. Okay, first of all, it was stupid because they were about ready to launch this rocket. They had the whole mission planned out and the crew ready, and
They had no pilot.
we don't have a pilot. I
Okay.
hope a pilot shows up. And the only person who could possibly do this is a guy I trained 10 years ago or whatever, who happens to be a single father. So he's going to have to abandon his children. Wow, that'll create a great subplot.
I think you're missing something
What
important.
I'm missing nothing.
Oh, yes, you are. They were all ready to go without him. They didn't need him.
They
on
didn't
the
need a
thing.
pilot?
So remember, how did he end up at NASA?
They didn't need a pilot?
They had somebody.
He let himself there.
He let himself there. No, wait. The premise of the movie is that at some point in the far, far, far distant future, there is an evolved form of the human species somewhere in the universe
That looks a lot like Matthew McConaughey.
that knows how to manipulate time space.
Yeah.
And somehow has to get this information to his daughter.
So that...
Wait. So they've manipulated this whole scenario so that he has to go into that black hole.
Why?
Just hold on, let me finish. So it wasn't NASA who said, "Oh, we need to." They never reached out to Matthew McConaughey to get him to be pilot. They never.
They wondered how he got there.
Right, he ended up there by accident because of the message that they received.
He let himself there.
He let himself there. So it wasn't about we suddenly need a pilot to do this thing, but he shows up all of a sudden. They go, well, he is the best pilot we've ever trained. Let's get him involved. But they didn't go after him.
They literally did not need a pilot.
They did not need him.
Except that he had so much to do to fly the ship.
Well, I think with that little story, I picked that up in the story that they didn't need him. They
Really?
added him on late.
I didn't. Did you pick that up?
Well,
This is a mission
you would
that does
have
not
to
need a pilot.
You would have to assume they had a different pilot.
Yeah, they had somebody, but they weren't the best. And then this guy suddenly shows up, and he's the best ever.
If there was anyone else who could do it, would you abandon your children because you think you can do it 5%
he was
better?
deceived. He was deceived.
Into
He
what?
did not think that he was going to be gone as long as he was. He thought he was going back.
And he thought that the Michael Caine character was figuring out a way to save his family, to join him. And so all that was,
I
He was
guess.
deceived by the devil.
And guess what, kids? Guess what? If you've gone through a wormhole, video transmissions can go in, but they can't come out. So I can hear from you, but you'll never hear from me again.
Well, no,
that
was
convenient?
that was time. That had to do with time.
No, it didn't. It was like the transmissions could only go one way. They can't get our transmissions.
Is that true?
Well, that's not true or false. I mean, it's just part of the narrative. It made the story more compelling.
Yeah. Right.
Okay,
All
fine.
right, I missed that part.
So
That was dumb.
here's why I think
they
that
were playing with my emotions, and I didn't like it. It didn't need to be that way.
here's the part of the movie I did like.
Okay, what did
Could
you
have been a whole family going together like Lost in Space.
Why
And
didn't they
could
send the whole
then they-
family?
he could have brought his daughter, could have read her bedtime stories every night. She could have grown up, and she could have solved all those math equations while they were traveling.
But those math equations couldn't be solved, which
Okay.
was the whole point.
Until
So-
Matthew McConaughey was in the future talking to himself. How did he get to the future if the humanity wouldn't survive unless they got messages from him in the future?
This is the problem with all time travel movies, right? They become circular and stupid. So here's the part philosophically of the movie that I thought was actually rather intriguing. And for those who haven't seen it,
We're sorry we spoiled it for you already.
not only does it be spoiled, this probably makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so they land on one planet where an earlier explorer
Right.
had been, who turns out to be,
A very bad guy.
well,
the
yeah.
first planet, he's
dead.
He's dead.
She's
Well,
dead.
I'm talking about the second planet, and,
Yeah, second
and
planet.
it's Matt Damon,
Yeah.
right, who's woken up from this kind of not hypnosis, hibernation,
Suspended.
and
information.
wait, his name, you remember his name?
Dr. Mann.
Dr. Mann.
Man messes up everything.
Right. So he's sort of this paradigm figure of humanity.
Yeah.
But they have an interesting conversation about how humans feel a great deal of loyalty and survival instinct for their immediate families.
Right.
So Matthew McConaughey with his daughter and his children, like he's driven to figure out a solution to this problem because he cares about his kids.
Right.
And even Anne Hathaway's character, it turns out, who seems like this objective scientific type, is actually driven to find her long lost love,
right.
who's abandoned on one of these planets also. So her motivation is
love.
Is love. And this Matt Damon character has no family, has no attachments, and all he cares about is saving himself.
Right.
Right?
But
Yeah,
why?
survival.
What do you mean why?
Why did he?
People don't want to die.
He just, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so he manipulated the whole thing for his own survival. But the kind of philosophical discussion of the movie is, can we have our empathy reach the point where it transcends just my survival or the survival of my children? Can we extend it to the whole of humanity? And that was the big debate: is will we sacrifice our own families in order to save all of humanity? And what was being brought up there is actually a well-studied phenomenon about human empathy, and a historical one, which I'm guessing the writers of the movie are familiar with. So the argument goes like this: in early civilization, people only cared about themselves and their immediate blood relatives. So you would kill others or defend others to protect your family. Then religion emerges, and that sphere of loyalty or empathy extends not just to my family, but to my tribe, to those who share my culture, to those who share my religious beliefs. And then in the later 1,000 years ago, 1,200 years ago, that extends again as the nation state begins to emerge. So my loyalty isn't just
your tribe grows.
My tribe grows to those who even may not share my religion, but share my nationality. So, for example, many of us feel a sense of loyalty to fellow Americans,
My fellow Americans,
or all the wars of the 20th century were really about, and even before that, nationalism.
That's why we had to wipe out all the Native Americans.
So now the argument is
to our fellow Americans.
Right. So the argument is humanity evolving to the place where our empathy will grow even beyond national identity to a species wide. So in order to do that, the argument is we need to have a global problem to solve, like environmental decay or the planet's dying or something like that, in order for us to transcend our national identities, to truly see
alien
ourselves.
attack.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what the movie was trying to get at.
That's what that was about.
That's what the movie was trying to get at. Here's the premise of the movie: is the entire globe is threatened. And can we find it in ourselves to be empathetic toward our whole species?
Yeah.
Or will we continue to limit our empathy just to our immediate selves or family?
Yes.
And what ends up winning in the movie is
our family.
Our families. It's our personal loyalties. You even see Anne Hathaway at the very end of the movie setting up a colony where her long-lost love had been.
Yeah.
And you see Matthew McConaughey's whole characters, it's all driven about his daughter and his family. So that's an interesting, I think, that was the part of the film I thought was actually intriguing, which is why the father-daughter thing needed to be there. Because it's really not an exploration of science and physics as much as it is the extent of human empathy.
Well, when you take it to that level, there is maybe something valuable to think about.
Yeah.
But it was so hard to get through so many layers of all of that.
Couldn't he have just had a wife to take care of his kids? And then...
But he had John Lithgow.
Oh, he's a lousy surrogate mother. Okay.
Don't tell him that.
Nate Fleming, one of our listeners, sent this in. It's a blog post by Nate Fleming, who called Interstellar the best Christmas movie ever.
Really? Yes. Well, what does he have to say?
Does he see allegory in it?
He says, here's some quotes from Nate Fleming. Most Christmas movies wind up ultimately small and dull and monochrome and lifeless when you hold them up to the light of the season that they are supposed to represent. Most Christmas movies are too small.
Like Kirk Cameron's?
But he saved Christmas. How could that be too small?
From his SUV. Interstellar is the polar opposite, a big movie dealing with big problems, big solutions, and the nature of the universe. But at the same time, Interstellar, the heartbeat of the film, is a small, touching story of the relationship between a father and a daughter. So then he looks at the universe we actually live in and says, the universe we live in is massively huge, so much bigger than we can imagine, and God made it, so God is even bigger. That Interstellar, the movie, creates a sense of awe and wonder at, if there is a God capable of creating on this scale, he deserves our worship.
Although it's a truly godless movie.
That's not the point. Yeah. God,
there's a Lazarus in there.
God who made it all. This is one of the reasons why those of us who believe in that God also want to worship him, because of the idea that he is so indescribably immense that he can make something as indescribably immense as the universe. But then you have Jesus, and now on a very small scale, Jesus, who transcends time and space, becomes tiny, becomes a baby. See? And the whole thing just isn't just about it going on an adventure, it's a rescue mission.
Right.
So, and this is where he kind of pulls it together. It says, so Jesus, in this giant scale story, becomes tiny and intimate, like a father-daughter story, and basically creates a wormhole to us so that we have access to God.
Well, I heard it was like a bridge.
No, it's a wormhole.
It's a wormhole now.
Haven't you ever seen?
That's the 21st version of
Bill Bright track.
Right, the Bill Bright track.
There's a wormhole. Between,
You and I came from the same place.
Yeah.
We have all the same stuff in our brain.
So, just like Christopher Nolan's wormhole opened the doorway to a faraway galaxy, Jesus Christ's decision to be born a baby, to live the sinless, perfect life that we were unable to live, and then to die on the cross in our place opened a doorway that enabled us to cross from this world to his. That's Interstellar is a Christmas movie. Did they buy?
And
Whatever.
Sky says.
It's
Sky
fine.
says
It's
whatever.
fine. I guess you can preach that, but
Okay.
I think there's easier analogies to make.
How about this one? Christianity Today editorial says Interstellar is profoundly religious
It is?
I would agree with that.
because it asks
But godless.
the biggest of big religious questions like these. Who are we? What are we made to be? Should that be determined by others? Are we worth saving? Can we save ourselves? And if so, should we?
Well, that's okay. That's the point that I found really interesting, other than the one I already made about the empathy piece. But this movie was entirely humanist. And one part I didn't quite get was they draw the conclusion that whatever's communicating with them, they're giving them the wormhole,
Right.
placing
The
they.
the they, that they conclude it's humans, a higher formed, evolved humanity.
Some sort of species.
Right.
Well, they conclude
think it's humans?
It's us in the future who have figured out how to live in 5 dimensions.
Yes, it's 5-dimensional humans of the future.
All right.
Right.
Okay.
And so
The fourth
but
dimension
I'm
is
like, well,
chocolate.
what
Yay.
I
could go with
thought
that.
my first instinct was when I was watching early part of the movie, it's aliens, right?
Yeah.
It's some kind of alien
Right.
species.
So it's like Contact.
Yeah, it's like
Carl
a
Sagan
benevolent
stuff.
alien species. But they don't go there with the movie, and they certainly don't go anywhere near this is God or this is some
No. Oh, heavens,
supernatural
no.
thing, right? So their only conclusion is if there's another intelligence out there and it's more intelligent than us, it must be us.
It must be us.
It's a
Right.
completely
How could it be
and yet
anything else
the
but
depiction
us?
of humans throughout the movie is they're duplicitous, they're evil. A lot of the main characters end up being
Self-seeking.
self-seeking.
Yeah.
So you're like, well, how come there are these amazingly benevolent, outrageously intelligent creatures,
Right.
and your only assumption is it must be us? I just think that I found that fascinating. So, and it gave me a preview of where the whole debate between theists and atheists may well be going.
Which is?
Which is atheists are maybe so set in their absolute view that there is no God that if we were to find any evidence in this universe of intelligent consciousness that is not from Earth, they could only conclude it's got to be us in a future
It's
evolved
future
form.
us.
It's not God. It's
Maybe
it's a future
us gave us the Bible.
Right.
Then. And so future us is God. And then Jesus is future us. And so they could just be Christians and just shift it all a little bit and accept everything.
But it just shows you that when you have a predetermined point of view, there's nothing that's going to get you out of it. Almost like a black
Right.
hole, right?
It was kind of like an attempt to create a religious experience in a post-religious
exactly.
Mindset.
I had a very interesting experience because I usually am a very emotional person, compassionate
Yeah.
person, empathetic person.
But not in this case.
Well, and
Is that
I
what you're
usually
going?
am very moved. I'm usually very moved by good art,
Yeah.
whether it's movies or actual, art. And
Because they're not actually art. I know what you mean. I'm just
Commercial art.
fine art,
Yeah.
or theater. And so watching my son Josh have this reaction,
Yeah.
that's
He
what
had an out-of-body experience.
He had some sort of spiritual awakening and Interstellar, and I'm sitting there completely not moved emotionally.
Yeah.
It did not move me
Yeah.
emotionally. I did think about some of those issues that you were talking about, but I didn't really care much about the characters or what happened or I felt the most connected to the daughter, mostly because I felt like she was the victim in the movie.
Well, and she seemed like the most fully formed character as well. Everyone else
Right.
was kind of playing a role, but she was a person.
Right.
She
And I
was
had
just-
a lot of respect for her. I thought she was a strong woman who dealt with difficulty the best way she could. But I just wasn't moved emotionally. I wasn't really challenged to think intellectually.
So if you were Matthew McConaughey, that character, would you have left?
No.
No.
Me neither.
And here's the thing.
So
the narrative broke down for
human race
me.
dies.
What's that?
The human race dies.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's not Matthew McConaughey's fault. It's the stupid future humans' fault.
Yeah.
Because think about it. If these creatures, these future humans, have the ability to create a wormhole.
Yeah.
And they have the ability to manipulate a black hole.
Yeah.
And they have the ability.
Why don't they just pull Earth through it?
You're telling me that they couldn't have just sent the information about how to do this to Earth?
No.
Without sending Matthew
Why
McConaughey
didn't they,
through
if
the
they're that smart,
You know-
why don't they just bring everybody there like in a transporter?
If they're that smart, why don't they just give us new seeds that will grow on Earth?
Exactly. Like at some point, it's like you really have to rip this dad away from the daughter so he can go into a black hole so he can show up behind her bookshelf and poke books out. It's ridiculous. It's just stupid.
I just that's the way I felt about it. I thought it was just really stupid.
And if I go into a black hole and it turns out it's just the back of my kid's room,
Yeah.
I mean that feels like a black hole sometimes. The whole
my
thing.
kid's room feels like a black hole.
Yeah,
The back of it, but
that's where.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we've ruined the movie for
Sorry,
everyone.
everyone.
Sorry, Bill.
we need to put a
it's
spoiler
a great
when you
movie.
put this
Go
up.
see it.
You know what was helpful to me? I'd recommend though, guys, go onto YouTube and there are some videos with Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about the
Yeah.
actual science and physics of it that helped me grasp a little bit what's going on.
Yeah.
What are the 5 dimensions?
Oh,
What
that's
does that
easy.
mean?
So we live in 4 dimensions.
Okay.
Okay. So
What? Space.
space is 3.
Okay.
Right, because there's vertical, horizontal, and
Yeah.
and the XYZ axes of space.
The
Okay.
fourth is time, right?
And the 4th is time.
Okay.
So and Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about this. We can freely move in the 3 dimensions. We can move forward or back, side to side, up and down at will. We can't move in the 4th dimension, as he puts it, we're prisoners of the present. We can't move backwards in time. We can't move forwards in time.
Okay.
So,
I can take naps. Does that count?
so
Because I wake up and it's later.
the idea is if you have 4 dimensions, you only have access to the bottom 3 at will, and the 4th one you're a slave to.
Okay.
Right? But if you have 5 dimensions, then you can move at will in the previous 4. So you can now move
Says
through.
What's that based on? Right. Who says that? Why?
Well, there's mathematical formulas that say
So what's the fifth
How
dimension?
do we know?
we don't know, but
Pudding?
I saw something about
Chocolate.
string theory that there's I think they've now calculated there may well be 11
Yeah,
dimensions.
the string theory is up to 11 dimensions.
11 dimensions.
What is the
Yeah.
string theory?
Because they use those HP calculators that have all those extra buttons. And if you use one of those, you can come up with 11
People are
dimensions.
just making that stuff up.
Well, I think there's actually an interesting. Never mind.
Yeah.
I won't open up that can of worms.
Okay.
Or
So,
their holes.
so does Christopher Nolan get to make another big, giant, crazy movie like this? Or
You
'cause
tell us.
This is doing okay. It's
What if
not
people-
a runaway success.
Yeah.
So I
How much did it cost?
150.
I mean, as a
130,
producer
something
on a
like
very, very small scale, I'm sitting there. That was the other thing, trying to figure out how in the
wasn't cheap.
world,
Yeah.
do you produce this with all this stuff involved, and how much I was trying to
He
get my mind around that budget.
He planted 500 acres of corn. The cornfield, he made it. They didn't use a pre-existing cornfield.
Because we don't have enough of those.
No, we don't have cornfields that someone would let you film in. So it's in Canada somewhere. They planted 500 acres of corn, I guess, so they could drive through it at high speed and not mess up anyone's corn.
You know what?
It's a little bit ridiculous.
Do you remember the score from the movie?
Yeah, it was
Yes.
all organ.
It was all organ. It was like
Yeah.
church
It
music.
was like church music.
But they've said they picked that organ because the pipe organ was a symbol of scientific progress, not because of the religious connotation.
Right.
That's what Hans Zimmer said.
That's interesting.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Oh, no. The church music, that's not about church. That's
Right.
about science.
I thought
Because pipe organs are complex.
it was a very religious movie, like CT said, and the pipe
Yeah.
organ only added to that. And it dealt with a lot of religious themes, but it was from a purely humanist point of view, which was fascinating.
Let me ask you this: do you think that they purposefully made it that way, or do you think it was unintentionally
I think
religious?
it's very purposefully. Because when you're dealing with questions about the extinction of the earth, when you're dealing with messages from unknown sources, when you're dealing with all, I mean, you're telling me if that didn't happen, if that happened, people wouldn't be asking religious questions about God. Is this a message from God? Is this a message from spiritual beings? But that never gets brought up at all in the movie. There is nothing even, or if people see that their world is ending and the Dust Bowl and people don't have enough food, you're telling me they're not going to be running to churches and prayers, but nothing like that is depicted in the movie.
Because it's in the future,
but not that far. They're
We're
still
evolved
driving
beyond religion.
Lawrence Krauss, the physicist, said recently that it would only take one generation to exterminate religion.
And that's what keeps so many people funding evangelistic ministries. In one generation, the church could be extinct.
So this is. It seemed almost like a fantasy, a fantasy, the dream of atheist physicists who keep telling us that there is awe and wonder in science. And we can get the same awe and wonder that you get from religion. You can abandon religion and get the same awe and wonder from the universe.
Right.
And now here we're going to make something that shoves that awe and wonder down your throat so that you have to say, wow, now
I was not in awe or wonder. And I will tell you, when I watched Francis Chan's, little video where he talked about
Francis's.
Maybe I did.
He's a Trinity now.
Francis Chan's.
Yeah.
When I watched his video of whatever it was, what was it called?
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
Crazy Love stuff?
Crazy Love, yeah. Okay. There's, in the beginning of Crazy Love, there's a video, and he goes through the Hubble telescope's views of the solar system.
Okay.
And him talking about, he starts like in our, right here on Earth and takes it all the way out as far as it goes. Yeah. I was blown away and humbled by who that God is. And then he does another video explaining how.
But you didn't even know what Matthew McConaughey was going to have to do in that worldview then.
Right. So. But I'm just saying, that moved me. That I found awe.
Okay.
But this movie I did not feel that way at all.
Yeah, for me, there were too many things that were like, no, I wouldn't. Why would they do that? Why would he do that? No.
I kept thinking about it. If Matthew McConaughey is stuck in this little spaceship with 4 other people for like forever, did he start using deodorant? Because he doesn't wear deodorant.
Well, do you know what bothered me?
That's a really good question.
That's true.
I was just thinking, I think it smells.
I like that you're asking
what bothers
the
me
big questions.
is when they would get in those hibernation tanks, it didn't seem to bother them at all that they were like sucking in liquid.
Right. They were being waterboarded.
Right.
Basically.
Voluntarily. They did it to themselves.
Suspended animation tanks were waterboarding them.
And if they had that kind of technology, why wouldn't you just take like hundreds of humans and all just hibernate them and send them out into space and go, hey, someday...
And what about that robot?
Yeah.
Oh, I liked the robots. Now, I did like the robots.
Tars and Case.
How did he get any traction? He was slippery metal. And at one point he was running through water.
But at that point he looked like a snowflake.
That was the coolest design in the movie.
It was. I thought he was cool,
innovative.
and I loved
I don't think it worked.
I liked their writing, the scripts or the words that the soldiers used, and I thought their voices were great. This is from a voice actor, so they were my favorite characters in the movie. I think.
The robots.
The robots.
Okay, they were interesting. Some humanists or atheists have criticized the film because it started with the premise that humans are worth saving at all costs.
Oh, well, that's so horrible, isn't it?
And to the point, as opposed to, and this is the crowd that kind of looks at humanity as, look how wonderful the earth is, and humanity is a virus.
Then why do they call themselves humanists?
Maybe these weren't humanists.
Yeah, they would have to be atheists.
I guess.
Because humanists tend to
they
think highly of humanity.
So what about
they idolize humanity.
What about animal rights folks that say, hey, we can't elevate humanity above any other form of
Did you see that court case in New York this week?
With the monkey?
What?
Yeah.
No, I missed that.
Saw the
Fill
court
me
case
in.
with the monkey. There's a court case with a monkey in New York. Was it a baboon, an orangutan?
Some kind of ape, chimpanzee maybe.
Okay. To try to give him personhood so that the monkey would have the right to move, to live somewhere else. Because
the monkey asked for this right?
No. Animal rights activists asked for the right on behalf of the monkey because the monkey's living alone on someone's farm
in New Jersey.
The monkey's living in New Jersey, and they think it's cruel that any monkey
that anybody lives in New Jersey.
Live in New Jersey.
That's horrible.
So
It's
animal
horrible.
rights activists want the monkey to go to a nature preserve in, I don't know, Florida or someplace.
In California, where everything's wonderful.
So they were trying to argue that the monkey had rights. That this monkey should have the same rights as a person and should be able to live wherever he wants.
Because of its intelligence and it's an emotional creature
and it's suffering. And New Jersey is making this monkey suffer.
So how did this all play out?
So the court said no.
Oh, they did.
The court actually said, so the headline of the story was, monkeys are not people.
But corporations are.
For now.
But corporations are.
Well, the difference is with a corporation, at least they were saying, is a corporation is capable of understanding the law and being held responsible for its breach of the law.
This was why monkeys are not people. According to this court, they can't understand or follow law. That's it.
But that's...
So that's the image of God, apparently.
But the image of God. That's a problem. Because young children can't understand or follow the law, and so we don't hold
mentally handicapped.
We don't hold young children at the same level.
And the apes do have a heartbeat, and they have opposable thumbs.
So
they can at least pick up.
They can make tools.
Two huge questions that we still haven't gotten answers to in our society is, number one, what is a human, or who's a person, and what is religion? And until those two questions are settled, there's going to be never-ending debates in the court about all these kinds of things.
Well, we know what a human is now. It's anything that can understand law and follow it, or not.
Then that means
rules
children.
Out a lot of people.
We're going in circles, and I think our time is up. Good luck singing about this show.
Oh man, I had some other stories about atheists and Satanists.
Well, you'll have something to talk about next week.
I guess we'll have to wait for next week. So would you recommend Interstellar to a friend?
Depends on the friend. And if I want to keep them.
A good friend.
Depends on the good friend.
Depends on what kind of movies
my wife
like.
would hate that movie. It would just be...
that's good. Why would your wife hate it?
Because she doesn't like sci-fi.
Okay.
She's not that interested
It's not sci-fi. It's a religious experience.
Well, it's not the genre.
According to Josh.
It's not a genre that she likes, and I don't think the themes were dealt with interestingly enough, and the emotional engagement of the characters wasn't there, as you pointed out. It just wasn't satisfying enough of a movie experience.
I would say if you have trouble sitting still for 3 hours, this is not the movie for you.
Okay.
And if you...
so you'd prefer, like, Avatar?
Probably.
Also religious themes.
And it's not very entertaining. Like, it's not a happy movie, not a fun movie.
It's not terribly entertaining.
No, it's not.
And the big payoff, the big reunion at the end...
wasn't cool.
Okay, see you
later.
It was
very sad. Yeah, it was very weird.
It's a sad movie. We waited this long to talk about it. Now Bill is never going to want to ever see it, ever. And for that, we are truly sorry.
What about, we got to talk about the Exodus movie.
The Exodus movie.
There's a lot of controversy.
We haven't seen that yet.
Do we have to see it?
That never stopped us before.
We have been forbidden from talking about movies we have not seen.
I know. That annoyed some of our... We still have people talking about Israel on the website.
It's been a very controversial subject.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't have to talk about that this week.
There's two big controversies on the Exodus movie,
What are they?
One, people are upset that there's really no minorities in the cast.
Yeah.
Oh.
Despite being set in Egypt.
Except like slaves.
Right.
It's the extras that are minorities.
Right. And then secondly, the depiction of God. Have you heard about that?
Oh, yeah.
No, I haven't.
Ooh.
What is it?
I haven't seen it yet.
Is it a woman?
No.
It's a child.
He's a child.
Like a 6-year-old boy.
Well, that's what Jesus was.
A somewhat...
But a very capricious and nasty...
Petty, somewhat petty 6-year-old boy.
Well, how in the world can you come up with that out of Exodus?
You can't.
Pretty easily.
What? Well, now I'm really confused.
The killing people, the changing of the mind, the I'm jealous, the ground opens up, and it's the atheist interpretation of the God of the Old Testament is that he's petty and violent.
Yeah, but in the book of Exodus, God only speaks through the bush to Moses.
Yeah,
there's a voice from the bush. There's no person.
It's a 6-year-old bush.
So they read it. It should have said boy instead of bush, and they just somehow wrote that down wrong.
Well, the Hebrew is vague.
Right.
Is it bush or 6-year-old boy?
Maybe it's George Bush as a 6-year-old boy.
Oh gosh, we are really
With his hair on
off
fire.
the rails. Sing, Phil.
Do you want to see Interstellar? Or did our review make you yeller and reconsidering whether you want to see what's his name?
Matthew.
Matthew McConaughey driving his Lincoln through a wormhole into space? That's where most of the film takes place when they're not in the 1930s Dust Bowl with John Lithgow acting like a farmer with a wormhole that sucked away his
Terrible
son.
song.
What are you talking about? This is the best song I ever did. I was on such a roll, and you just killed it. Is
Sorry.
it religious, or is it science? Or is it filled with a father's romance for the astronaut lady who wants to go to the black hole to find her old lover who may or may not still be alive, and they accidentally spend 21 years in knee-deep water with tidal waves? You could sing about that movie forever because it's the craziest thing you ever saw. But next week we'll talk about Exodus. Okay, see you later. Thanks for coming. Have a good week.
Bye, everybody.